We begin this afternoon's plenary session with VIRTUOSO, Orchestrating Virtual Team Success, a report from Research Team 326. VIRTUOSO is a key performance indicators-based tool designed to maximize virtual team performance. Please welcome Roy Duncan, Mobile Operations Leader for Hargrove Engineers and Constructors, and Stephanie Felton, Division Chief for Project Development and Coordination for the Near East and Asia at the U.S. Department of State.
Good afternoon. My name is Roy Duncan.
And I'm Stephanie Felton.
And we are pleased to represent Research Team 326 in sharing VIRTUOSO, Orchestrating Virtual Team Success. Virtual teams, they impact more than just the construction industry. And we'd like to start by sharing a short video clip of Eric Whittaker's virtual choir. This is Eric Whittaker, conductor and composer, and the piece is titled Water Night. Eric has assembled over 3,700 virtual choir members from 73 different nations, forming a virtual choir that is connected and amplified via technology. Let's enjoy a few moments together. Indeed, a high-performing virtual choir, and a virtual choir that ultimately inspired the theme of our presentation today. At this time, I'd like to introduce our high-performing team, the RT326 Virtual Choir. Our team is highly experienced in virtual teaming within the construction industry and represent the CII member organizations shown on the screen.
If you'd never seen that video, I bet you assumed that a choir is definitely something that needs everyone in the same room at the same time. But they didn't need to be co-located to make great music. And if a choir doesn't require co-location, then we as the construction industry should think about our preconceptions about virtual teaming as well. In fact, our research team worked as a virtual team ourselves through the last 2 years as members spread across the country. Oops. And as we started challenging our own notions about virtual teaming, we began by looking at past CII research. We started with the 1998 study on success factors for high-performing teams, and then built on the 2002 study for implementation on virtual teams. And a common thread with this past research was that there was an assumption that all teams required co-location at some point. But we built on that and took it to the next level and looked at how you can have high performance regardless of your members' locations. And we asked ourselves, what can the construction industry do to maximize the performance of virtual teams? First off, let's see a show of hands. How many of you work on a virtual team, now or in the recent past? All right, that's some of you, that's not all of you. And so if you didn't raise your hand, I'd have to assume that you and everyone on your project team work in the same city. That would be the contractors, subs, architects, engineers. You're all in the same city. And not only that, you're all in the same building. And you all work on the same floor of that building. Now, if those aren't true, that means you're working virtually with some of your teammates. So with that understanding, how many of you now work on virtual teams? All right, that's more like everybody. So thanks to technology, we're interacting virtually without even really thinking about it. Basically, if you can't hear your teammates clipping their fingernails in the cube next to you, then you need to learn our key principles for successful performance. So those of you who raised your hands, and the few of you that didn't, I don't quite believe you, you know that there are challenges with working virtually with your teammates. Maybe you don't have reliable internet service at one of your sites, and people have difficulty with not being able to read visual cues. You can't read body language through the phone, and everybody's misread the tone of an email. Also, leaders have a harder time managing people that they don't see. And employees can feel less motivated if they don't have to actually face their teammates. And you can lose some of the camaraderie if you don't have that personal interaction. And if you don't have clear procedures, people can miss information. Add into this potential differences in cultures, time zones, and maybe even languages, and these are all barriers to effectiveness. However, through our case studies and surveys, we found teams that were successful yet performed all of their work virtually. So we're comfortable saying that you can have high performance with your teammates even if you don't have to battle them for control of the single office thermostat.
That's right, Stephanie. But no one says that it's easy. The results of our research identified 21 virtual team key performance indicators, or KPIs, that when maximized provide the greatest opportunity for your virtual team's success. With a reference to our virtual choir theme, the KPIs have been divided into 3 categories: technology, the amplifier representing the construction industry's technology that keeps our teams well connected; team, the conductor, that represents the construction industry's project team leaders and team members; and process, the score, that represents our construction industry's best practices that keeps our teams operating on the same page. The specific KPIs have been identified as follows. In technology, we have such KPIs as connectivity, mobility device, and multimodal communication. In team, KPIs as leadership, accountability, and process, such KPIs as communications, process management, and meeting standards. Having identified these KPIs, our team developed a tool that has a graphic equalizer output that allows us to evaluate a project virtual team in each of these 3 categories. Similar to the example shown on the screen, with a maximum score of 100% in each of the categories, this team scores quite strong in both technology and process. But maybe in a relative sense, they could use some advice on teaming. And perhaps that advice could come from an expert or someone who is a virtuoso.
In fact, our implementation resource is a tool that we've named VIRTUOSO, and we'll demonstrate it in our breakout session. The tool's input starts with a survey that can be taken by a project manager or team lead at any significant gate in the project process, but ideally would be taken at the very early planning stages. From there, it will produce a graphic equalizer that Roy mentioned, and that will show you where your team scores on specific KPIs where you might need some assistance. And at this point, you can customize the equalizer and opt to get more guidance on KPIs that perhaps you scored well on, but know that you could use some room for improvement. And the output is an implementation guide, which is printable, which will provide guidance in 3 forms. The first are references to CII best practices that you can implement with your team. The second are example templates, such as a sample web meeting agenda. And third are suggestions from our successful team case studies that might include appointing a moderator when you have a web call who can monitor the chat feature and make sure that everybody has a chance to be heard. So please join us in our breakout session to understand and identify KPIs that are associated with high performance.
Also, learn how to implement and navigate through the various sections of the Virtuoso tool.
Identify areas of performance deficiency where your team can learn to improve.
Recognize and apply implementation guidance, including existing CII resources to help maximize your virtual team's performance.
And be a champion for the vision of virtual teaming in the construction industry.
We have a uniquely orchestrated and highly interactive breakout session planned, where you can learn to orchestrate your virtual teams. And notice on the screen that right now you can begin interacting with the RT326 choir by texting VIRTUOSO to number 35867.
With virtual teaming becoming ever more the norm in the construction industry, we've produced a vision of how seamless collaboration can be if you have the right tools and use the KPIs we've identified. We'll show you the full version in our breakout session, but right now we're going to leave you with this clip of our envisioned future.